So every project needs stuff to get done, right? Whether it's software, specific services, or just some expert help. The way you get that stuff is called procurement. But here's the thing, it's not just about buying things. It's really about picking a philosophy. Are you going to follow a super detailed, rigid blueprint, or are you going to have a flexible, ongoing conversation? Today, we're going to break down these two completely different ways of thinking about getting what you need.
Here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll get on the same page about what procurement management even is. Then we'll dive into those two core philosophies that change everything. After that, we'll walk through the three big processes, the plan, the execution, and the follow-through to see how this all works in the real world. By the end, you'll see exactly how to pick the right approach for your own projects. Let's jump in.
All right, first up, before we can really get into the whole blueprint versus conversation debate, we need to lay down a solid foundation. So, what exactly is procurement management? Let's define it.
Okay, so at its core, project procurement management is just all the processes you need to buy or acquire anything from outside your direct team. But it's way more than just clicking Add to Cart. It's about managing those relationships with your vendors, making sure all the contracts are solid and legal, and most importantly, making sure the stuff you buy actually helps you get the project across the finish line successfully.
Now we're getting to the really interesting part. This is the whole idea behind this explainer. See, while the goal is always the same, get the resources you need, there are two fundamentally different mindsets on how to get there. And this one choice, this philosophy, pretty much dictates everything else that happens.
So on one side, you've got the traditional approach. This is all about compliance. The contract is king. It's treated like a rigid, legally binding blueprint that has to be followed to the letter. This is perfect for projects where you know exactly what you need up front. But on the other side, you have the Agile approach, which is all about collaboration. Here, the agreement isn't the end of the line, it's the start of a conversation. It's a flexible framework for working together to hit a shared goal, even if you don't know the exact path to get there yet.
Okay, so we have these two big ideas, compliance and collaboration. But how do they actually look in the real world? Let's break it down, starting with the very first step in the process, making the plan.
In a traditional setup, planning is a huge deal, and it all happens up front. The main goal is to define exactly what you need and how you're going to get it, locking everything down early on. You'll use tools like make or buy analysis and tons of market research. And what do you get at the end of all this? That blueprint we were talking about, a super detailed procurement plan and a stack of formal bid documents.
Now, the Agile approach to planning, well, it couldn't be more different. Instead of trying to write the perfect plan from day one, the focus is on finding a true partner, not just a supplier. You're trying to see who you can actually work with. So you use things like vendor workshops and demos. And the output isn't a massive document. It's a lightweight working agreement and a shared understanding of what done really means.
So when you put them side by side, the difference is crystal clear, isn't it? The traditional way gives you a fixed, detailed plan that you lock in at the very beginning. The Agile way is all about flexible, iterative engagement where you can revisit decisions as you learn more. It's really a trade-off. Are you optimizing for compliance with a plan or for collaboration toward a shared goal? All right, we've got a plan. Now what? We move on to execution. This is where the rubber really meets the road. It's time to pick a vendor and actually get a contract signed. Traditional execution is super formal and structured, and for good reason. It's all about ensuring fairness and transparency. You hold these big bidder conferences, use really strict evaluation criteria. It creates a solid paper trail. The end result is exactly what you'd expect, a selected seller and a massive, comprehensive, signed agreement that covers the entire project from A to Z. Agile execution flips the script. It's all about try before you buy. I mean, why would you risk a giant contract based on a 100-page proposal when you can just see how a team actually works? So you use trial sprints or prototypes to see what the vibe is like in the real world. The agreement you sign isn't for the whole shebang, but for the next small, valuable chunk of work. And this comparison just highlights that shift in thinking perfectly. Traditional execution is like making one huge, high-stakes bet based on paper. Agile is more like a series of smaller, smarter bets where you build confidence through actual collaboration. You go from one massive negotiation to a bunch of smaller, value-based agreements that can change over time. So, the contract is signed, the work has started, but we are not done yet. Not by a long shot. Now we get to the final process, the follow-through. How do you actually manage the relationship after the handshake? In the traditional world, control is all about oversight.
You are constantly watching the vendor's performance to make sure it matches the contract, word for word. You're using tools like formal audits and performance reviews to hold them accountable. The big question is always the same. Did they deliver what the blueprint said they would?
With Agile, though, control just becomes part of the daily routine. The vendor isn't some outsider you have to manage. They're literally part of the team. You're not checking their performance in a scary quarterly audit. You're talking about it in every single sprint review. When problems pop up, you solve them together. The whole point is this constant loop of feedback that leads to constant improvement.
So when you look at it this way, the traditional path relies on these big formal reviews and a complicated change request process if anything needs to be different. The Agile path? It just uses constant feedback loops and lets you reprioritize the work as you go. This really gets to the heart of it all. It's a shift from policing a document to partnering up to get real results.
All right, we've walked through the whole journey, the plan, the execution, and the follow-through. For our final section, let's put it all together and get a clear, complete picture of these two powerful and very different philosophies.
You know, what's great about this is how clearly it maps everything out. Look, across all three stages, the traditional path is defined by formal documents, rigid contracts, and a heavy focus on compliance. That's the blueprint. The Agile path, on the other hand, is all about adaptive collaboration, iterative engagement, and continuous feedback. That's the conversation. And look, neither one is automatically right or wrong. They're just built for completely different types of projects and goals.
And that leads us to one last question to chew on. In today's world where everything seems to be getting more complex and unpredictable, we have to ask, is that rigid, detailed contract, our blueprint, really a safeguard that's protecting us, or has it maybe become a liability that stops us from adapting and truly collaborating? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks so much for watching.